All right, this is from the Honors Purple Book, Chapter 1, Lesson 5. We'll be doing the guided practice off of page 46. So we're dealing with negative exponents. Remember, if we follow this pattern down, like 2 to the third equals 8, 2 squared equals 4, 2 to the first equals 2, right? Well, every time the exponent goes down by 1, you're dividing by 2. So 2 to the 0 power would be 1, and then 2 to the negative 1, I'd continue to divide by 2, I'd get 1/2. 2 to the negative second power, I'd get 1/4, or 1 over 2 squared, 1 over 2 to the first power. So if you understand that pattern, when we look at this, I go 2 to the negative fourth, that's going to be 1 over 2 to the fourth power. 4 to the negative third is going to be 1 over 4 to the third power. In other words, a negative exponent flips it from the numerator to the denominator, or if there was a negative exponent on the bottom, it would flip it from the denominator to the numerator. So a to the negative fourth is 1 over a to the fourth. G to the negative seventh would be 1 over g to the seventh. So recognizing that, this is just reversing that process, is writing this as a negative exponent. So 3 to the fourth positive on the bottom would be, if I flip that to the top, then it would be 3 to the negative fourth. This would be m to the negative fifth if I flipped it to the top. I could write this as, well, I could write it as 4 to the negative second, or I could write it as 2 to the negative fourth, right? And then 1 to the 49th, that is 7 squared, correct? So it'd be 1 over 7 squared, so let me show you that a little bit. Oops, sorry. 1 over 7 squared, so if I flip that to the top, it'd be 7 to the negative second power on the top. All right. Number 9, I don't have my book here, so I can't remember what this said, but it's something about this number 0.0001. They want you to write it as a power of 10, the next 10 with an exponent. So, well, 10 to the first power would be 1, or 10. 10 to the 0 power would be 1, right? 10 to the negative first would be 0.1. 10 to the negative second would be 0.01. Are you seeing that pattern? So every time I have an extra exponent, I'm moving it over another one. So I'd be 10 to the negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 to the negative fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 to the negative fifth power. Number 10. This goes back to what we learned the other day. Same base. So I can just add these. I use my integer rules. So that would be 3 to the negative fifth power. Or I could write it as 1 over 3 to the fifth power. Same thing on this one. Use your exponent rules. I would end up with r to the different sign, subtract sign of the larger, r to the negative fourth, or 1 over r to the fourth. On this one, this is a quotient of power, so I'm going to have to subtract. Well, I'm going to do this two different ways. If I did it by subtracting, I would go minus negative 12, right? Leave, change opposite. That ends up being plus positive 12. So I would end up with p to the 10th. If I flip them, notice I said p to the 10th. So if I flip them where they're negatives, remember p to the negative second is going to end up as p to the second on the bottom. P to the negative 12 from the bottom is going to flip it to the top and be p to the 12th. Then I could do my subtraction and I'd still end up with p to the 10th. So now I'm going to do one problem that has a little bit of all of the stuff that we've dealt with. All right, so I have a lot of junk here. So I'm going to remind you of the power of products. So 3 to the second. In fact, I'm just going to set one up over here. This would be 3 to the second. I'm doing this power to all of these. F to the 8th. P to the negative 4th. G to the 10th. H to the negative 6th. On the bottom, I'm taking a negative third power to all these things. So that'd be 4 to the negative third. F to the positive 6th. P to the positive 9th. G to the negative 18th. H to the negative 30th. Now I'd probably take a second and I would move these all to the proper side. So I'm going to set up just a couple more here so you see them. Anything that's a negative power, I'm going to flip to the other side. So these p's are going to go to the bottom. I'd still end up with these 3 squared on top. F to the 8th stays on top. P to the negative 4th goes to the bottom. G to the 10th stays on top. h to the negative 6 goes to the bottom, 4 to the negative third goes to the top, f to the 6th stays on the bottom, p to the 9th stays on the bottom, g to the 18th, negative 18th goes to the top, h to the 30th goes to the top. Then I could start combining things. For example, I see that I have h's here and here. That would be subtraction, so I'd end up with 24 h's on the top, 30 minus 6. I end up with p's down here together, so I could add those together and get p to the 13th. I have f's on top and bottom, so let me get these f's. That would be f squared on top. I have g to the 10th and g to the 18th, so that'd be g to the 28th on top. I have a 3 squared and a 4 to the 3rd. 4 to the 3rd, 3 squared, and that's what I would end up as I combine all of that. I want to make that a little bit closer so you can see that. Now I have only f's, g's, h's, and numbers on top, and only p's on the bottom. It's simplified.